Hi there. These are some questions that came in from the free intuition class online. And this is from segment 3, the 4 enemies. These are questions and comments. So let's read these and see if we can answer as many as possible. The first one is from 0911 on Patreon. And the question is, how do you deal with the fear of misusing power and messing things up badly? Or putting it more accurately, I am afraid of making bad mistakes and not just unable to recover from them, but also repeating them without learning from them. That's a good question. The thing that you have to do with fear and making, that fear of misusing your power is you have to learn to be patient and watch and see how are things unfolding. The goal is not to jump out there and to impress everybody with your intuitive insight or your vision or your message that you got. If it's useful or relevant and it fits in with the topic or the situation you're in, then yeah, you can share that. But that's about it. If you're trying to have power over others as well, power is something that you want to use with others and within yourself. You don't want power. Power is not something that you want to use over others. It's power with, not power over. And so it's really important to understand that power is the ability to put the right word in at just the right minute that changes somebody's mind. It's the idea of being in just the right place at the right time in such a way that you save a kitten from drowning or a small child, or you somehow make a move in your car that avoids a massive accident that would have involved many people. And you're all safe, you're all okay. That's power because you're watching, you're present, and you're seeing what's coming. Okay? The idea of power of making a mistake, yeah, I made a few mistakes, but I did learn from them. Often what you see is about yourself in the beginning, and later it's about stuff in the world. Okay? So keep that in mind. If you're seeing openly, honestly, truly, then yeah, that's what do you do with that? Mostly you just watch and wait patiently and see, is it time for me to act? No, not yet. Is it now time? No, not yet. What about now? No, it's now. Oh, go. That's the proper use of power. Okay. Next, we have a question from Rebecca Roberts, and she says, would bias and triggers be balanced or healed in the overcoming fear stage or clarity? Neither. You heal, you examine yourself for biases, triggers, arrogance, the need for attention that is inappropriate, those kinds of things, fears, etc. Most fear is based on the idea that the world should be this way. And the minute it changes, you're like, oh no. Who said that the world should be this way? The world is what it is. So what happens is that as you face your own rigidities and biases and triggers, etc., you end up looking at the root of that. We don't really do that until intuition 4. But that is something that as you look at that, you can say, I made a decision about the world and about life and about how things should be. Is that decision still valid? If it's not, you change it. And that is what releases you from biases, triggers, fears, arrogance, etc. The need for attention, that's often used against people. Oh, he's just looking for attention. We need to be paying attention to ourselves. When you start paying attention to you, you don't need attention from anybody else. We have all been conned into thinking that we need to be selfless, completely selfless. Well, when you're completely selfless, you don't exist. So that's horsepucky, okay? As you deal with your biases and things like that, your fear goes away. As you practice in your mind, okay, how can I say that so that it won't cause a problem? And how do I think about that so I can relax, etc.? You end up getting right into the root of things. So it's a very good question. Thank you, Rebecca. Next, we have a question from Huda. I'm curious about your thoughts of what I know to be deja vu. As over the years, I've had numerous moments of WTF, as it felt as if I had already experienced this exact moment. Same place, same people, same sights, same sounds, but yet never been to that particular location in my waking hours, as far as I'm aware. What is that? That's you being precognitive. That's you being able to see the future. When we go to sleep at night, some of our dreams, a lot of them, in fact, take us into the future where we practice dealing with something or we see something we like elsewhere on the planet or elsewhere among other people or situation elsewhere in your city. And then down the line, somewhere later in time, while you're wide awake, you actually go there. And you have that feeling, I've been here, because you have been there out of body, not physically. Okay? So deja vu is just you being very, very wary. A lot of times people who have a lot of deja vu are very wary. They're on guard. They're always looking. Are we safe? Are we secure? Am I safe? Am I secure? And so they are going out to take a look at their future and how it unfolds. And then they come back and they've already experienced it. And they're like, oh, why do I have the feeling I've done this before? Because you have. Okay. So good question. Prairie 99 says, are there cycles or levels of each of the four enemies? Or is it a once and done kind of thing? No, there's levels and cycles. Okay. So Prairie says, seems like I keep learning, conquering a deeper truth of each enemy, and not always in the same order that you presented. For example, I conquer one fear and another one rears its ugly head. Yeah. I will have clarity with patience in one situation and then totally blow it in another. I'm 75 years old, and the fourth enemy has had many iterations as the years go by. And old age just about had me whipped until I decided to take your class. Good for you. Thank you from the deepest part of me who really desires to go on. 120, here I come. Love it. Oh my gosh. Yes, there are cycles. And when you get to be in your 70s, you've been through a lot of those challenges, at least at a superficial level, sometimes at a pretty deep level, and sometimes at a level that frees you completely. Okay? New stuff is always coming up. And you can okay, I'm not sure what to do about that. I'm not sure how to respond to that. I'm not sure that that's the only possibility. You know, what else? What can I make happen? If I don't like that, what can I make happen? Sometimes you just have to, acquiesce to something. You have to go along with it. There's nothing you can do except watch and wait to see if there are any openings. And you hold the intent that if I get a chance to do this or to shape that or to change this or to whatever it is you need to set yourself free, I'm going to take it. And so that's, that is the way you handle those various levels. Okay. Good question. And don't give up. Don't quit. Okay. Lakeview Victoria has the next question, and she says, I'm curious to know what your thoughts are regarding consuming meat and intuition. You've mentioned how important diet is and how it directly impacts our intuition. Yes. If you have DNA, let's say, I'm going to use this as an example. If your DNA is from the Inuit people, the Eskimos, you hardly have any enzymes or DNA that will handle fruit or vegetables. Their diet, and this probably is still the case, although this was really the case when these studies were done. People who live in an area where the only thing that grows are fish and animals and fat, that's what their system is. It becomes modified to be able to use. You give them fruits and veggies, they get a bellyache. They get bloating. They don't have the parts to digest that. There are all kinds of stories about meat. There are all kinds of people that are very, very sensitive, love animals, wouldn't consider eating meat. It's a lot more work to try to get all the aminos and maintain all of the microbiome without what your DNA is structured to take in. So eating meat does not affect your intuition. If anything, it will boost your intuition if you are from a meat-eating culture. And that's in the North America. If you're from the tropics, you're going to have many more enzymes and much more ability to survive and thrive on vegetables, fruits, things like that, maybe a little bit of fish. So you have to eat what your DNA requires. It's just that simple. Okay. And your heritage, when you go back and look at your ancestry, kind of gives you a clue as to what you are used to eating. Some people can't do milk because in some places of the world, they didn't have milk. So they can't do cow's milk. They might do goat's milk. They might do yak milk. Some people do sheep milk. Some people do horse milk. It all depends on where you come from. Okay. Let's see here. Let me just make one more comment about diet. It's the management of the microbiome and having all of the hundreds of microbes and forms of bacteria in there that should be in there, because without those, your consciousness suffers. Okay. It's another whole class, but just put that in your back pocket for now. Okay, next we have Paula Marie Music. What does the color pearl mean? A pearl is something that symbolizes having evolved or come through a really rough time and made the absolute best of it. That's what I call getting the gift, taking the gift, taking something that was awful and making it into a strength. So I've used the example before. I'll say it again. People who come in, the mother dies in birth, you have no mother, or you've got a stepmother and she just doesn't feel the same about you. What is the lesson? What's the gift? It's that you learn to mother yourself. That's when you become self-sufficient, self-recognizing, self-empowering. Okay? So that's just one example. Somebody beats you half to death, you become unafraid of conflict. So, yeah, there's all kinds of gifts that come from all of those difficulties. Many gifts from one difficulty. Good question. Deb Mel 12 says, is it okay to wear a smartwatch if you wear shungite, or is it better not to wear the watch? I'm going to say that shungite will help. I do not think we should be wearing all that electronic stuff. You can. People love their smartwatches. I'm like, why do we need that? You know, we do need technology. I love technology and everything that you can do with it, but I don't need it on my body. I don't need it in my bed. I don't need it beside my bed. I need to use it as a tool, not become part of its appendage, or it becomes an appendage on me. So it's tough for that part of the body. That's your wrists, etc. It's hard. So, okay, next. Atarius says, my first fear is about dying, and people don't know that it is nothing besides suffering. Do you agree? Yeah, I do. Dying is nothing compared to suffering. Dying is easy. It's really, if you've ever been in a place where you've been out of the body, or you have been out of this world, or let's see if I can come up with a few other examples from my own experience. You just sort of fade away. You just kind of fade. I had lives in which I died very consciously. Some of them were not good, but some of them was like, just pull your attention elsewhere, and boom, that reality is gone. So, yeah, people don't need to fear. You're not really dying. You're going to the next world. There's all sorts of places out there. Okay, so don't be afraid. Zen Bin says, Don Juan was very abusive at times. Can you comment? Angry villagers chased Castaneda to kill him one time, thinking he was abusing Don Juan, who had tricked them thinking he was elderly. I can't really comment on that. Don Juan was the furthest thing from abusive that I can imagine. He was patient. If people get angry because they were fools, that's they have to deal with themselves. I don't ever remember reading anything about Castaneda trying to kill Don Juan, or villagers, trying to kill Castaneda. I'm not sure where that came from. I'd be interested to know. Share more. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Carlos Castaneda was the one who was abusive. Final comment there. Not Don Juan. Aaron Thompson is next, and he says, how's everybody's woo compass lately? I'm part of a Zoom group, and lately we're all a bit off. We think it's the info noise and adapting to higher levels of incoming energy. That is a very good observation, Aaron. Everybody is off, has been off for the last month or two. Those are periods of time when we should be quiet. That's time to watch what's going on. The woo compass, right now there's a lot of frequencies being shoved and blasted everywhere, trying to confuse people. There are people out there trying to make people believe that the election, I won't get into the whole election thing, but it has problems. Okay. The election probably did not have problems. It's the problems that have followed the election. I won't say any more. I don't want to cause trouble. So yeah, those are the, a good way to think of it is that the pendulum swings both ways. I've had periods of time where it's like, I'm not having anything to do with the New Age or whatever you want to call it, the woo community. I'm not accepting my own psychic abilities. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to deal with it. And what I have learned is that those are periods where I absolutely have a ton of integration happening inside. And so I go and wash my socks, clean the kitchen, clean the cupboards, write to my friends, catch up with a few things around the farm, etc. And then all of a sudden something pops up and I think, oh, and I see and I know, and it's like, okay, I can't ignore this forever. And I'm done integrating. And then it's all back on. Okay. So quiet, active, quiet, active. Okay. Good point. Sleeping Giant 11. I think that might be 1111 or something like that. Hang on. Sleeping Giant 111 says, apparently the Saint Germain Trust is taboo for some reason. There is so much, what should I call it nicely? So much baloney around the Saint Germain Trust that's one of those things to just step back and watch what unfolds. Okay? There's too much conflicting stuff out there. And so there's the only thing I can say at this point that might be worth saying is that the Saint Germain Trust may have another name that is much more prescient, much more powerful, much more important. Okay, let's just watch. Okay, Sleeping Giant 111 says, has another question. I think there's a preset learning rate. No, there isn't. Well, let me say that differently. Okay, if and this is something that isn't happening, if we were born and raised correctly right from the birth onward, what we would discover is that all of those abilities that we're now trying to develop in a very remedial kind of fashion, all of those abilities would be in full flower by the time you are like 4 years old. So we don't birth our children and raise them in such a way that all of those abilities flower. Not only are we ignorant about how to raise those genius children with all of those abilities that unfold, and they're stage specific in the brain. Miss those stages, and now here we are trying to catch up. It becomes remedial. And yes, we can do it. But I think the other reason we don't raise those children to flower and step into their own power by age 4 is because we're afraid. We're afraid to have children more powerful than we are. And so we just ignore that. And how would we manage a child who has more power than we do? Good question. Okay. Fire Within. Question number, Fire Within says, question for Janine. That's what that means. How can tarot readings be involved and assist in the process of learning and teasing apart the 4 enemies process? Could the tarot be incorporated into them, etc.? Yeah. Tarot is a tool. So tarot readings and that whole process, I'll send this to Janine to see what she has to say. But that process of learning and teasing apart the 4 enemies, if you're, for instance, saying, okay, let me look at the cards, shuffle the cards, and be holding the question, what is the next fear that I have to deal with? one example of using tarot to assist in that process of dealing with the four enemies would be to hold the cards, shuffle them, and be asking the question in yourself. What is the biggest fear? What is the one thing that I am afraid to look at, to deal with? And then lay out your cards, maybe just 2 or 3, and decide the first card I lay out is going to be about the past. The second card is going to be the present. The third card is the future. And then see what those cards tell you. What is the fear? Let's say it comes out to be the card that's in the middle is the High Priestess. The High Priestess is the epitome of intuition, wisdom, power, insight, etc. So that tells you right there that your biggest fear is of your own intuition, of your own power, of knowing. Why? So then you might ask a second question. Well, why am I afraid of that? And you put down another card, and that card will indicate that maybe it has something to do with family, and that you don't know how to deal with family. How do you be powerful in a family in which you've always just been one of the kids? Okay, those are tough issues for people. So yeah, okay, enough on that. Sleeping Giant is back. Sleeping Giant 111 says, I am just doing my job, Penny. Okay. So I think, so there's a link here, Sleeping Giant. You sent a link, it's Rumble, and it says VW3HPT Trump says the sleeping giant has awoken during his CPAC speech. So I'm not sure what that refers to, sleeping giant. He says, I am just doing my job. Who's he? Is that Trump? It's hard to pick any context out of there. The sleeping giant is the American people. That has long been the case. We've known that since like the 1940s. Yeah, I think people are waking up. That's a good thing. That's the most I can say about that. Sorry. Digibean16 says, can you find a state of grace as you accept the height of your power? Sure. You can't really reach the height of your power without that state of grace. Grace is the ability to flow with the energies from within and around you. You want me to say that again? Grace is the ability to flow with the energies from within as well as those around you, and to not create any disturbances, and to make something happen that you love. So, and when you are in full alignment with those energies, you are in a state of grace. And things just happen magically. So, okay. Okay, last question. Sleeping Giant 111 again says, why aren't we ever asking questions about this? And then he gives a YouTube. I'm sorry, I didn't read that or look at that YouTube before. Maybe I'll save that. There's probably going to be more questions come in. So I'll save that and look at that and answer that next time. Okay, so that's the end of our questions so far for segment 3, the 4 enemies. There may be a few more. I'll have some more when they come in. Okay. All right. Wonderful. Take care. Keep learning. Keep stretching yourself. Okay.